Hey, everybody, it's Lance Dawson. I'm back in the studio today with Andrew Stewart. That would be his name, my main amigo for Backstage Lowdown. And today we have Canadian singer songwriter, blues country extraordinaire, Crystal Shawanda. I think she's hanging her hat in Nashville lately, but she signed with RCA in 2008, and she's a multiple Juno Award winner. And I think she's heading to Hamilton, the Hammer, for the Junos this year as well. And we are lucky enough to have her in the studio. So you got to join Andrew and I before we do that. One last reminder that this episode is sponsored by Look Digital Marketing. From stunning websites to full service digital marketing, they help your business shine online. See the difference with Look Digital Marketing. Visit lookmarketing.ca today. In studio, Backstage Lowdown, Andrew Stewart, myself, Lance Dawson, and Crystal Shawanda. Here we go. It's nice to meet you.
It's great to meet you as well. I'm trying to position myself. I'm on the road so unfortunately I don't have my better setup of my laptop and
That's
my
okay.
headphones.
No, we
So I
appreciate that.
apologize. We're rolling. As you can see, there's a Cracker Barrel behind.
The Cracker Barrel
I'm trying to get
is,
that on the shot.
or yeah,
Okay,
there's a
there
plug
we
for Cracker
go.
Barrel.
I have
Uh,
to
Yeah,
tell you this interesting Cracker Barrel story.
thanks.
there's no such
My,
thing.
no, there
Don't
is.
set it up like there's
My
no.
family and I
Oh,
we're traveling down south, and
Right.
we stop in a Cracker Barrel, and it's coming up to Christmas time, and my wife and I we go in for dinner, and my wife asked for wine, and the server kind of like, boy, wouldn't that be a Merry Christmas if Cracker Barrel actually served liquor? But no.
they're dry.
Yeah, they're dry. They're completely dry.
Yeah.
Now they're changing now though.
Oh, are they really?
They just recently they've started serving some alcohol beverages.
Oh,
I can't
Does
oh,
that
remember if
does
wine.
that
I'm not
explain
sure
why
if
you're there,
wine is
Crystal?
it.
Is that what you're saying? That's why
No,
Crystal's
no,
there.
no,
They just
no,
started
no.
serving.
I am here for the pancakes and the
There you go.
oh,
biscuits.
excellent. So, Crystal, you're
Well,
actually our second Manitoulin Island guest in the history of our show. In 6 years of doing our show, you're the second one on. Um,
Nice.
uh, so our guest was John Tustian. So he's a drummer with 30 odd six and the Studebaker props and amongst others. And he
Right.
actually I texted him to see if he happened to know you. And apparently you guys did share an event for whatever band he was playing with at the time. But I found that interesting, the fact that we've actually now had our second Manitoulin
That
Island.
is so funny. That is so funny.
there
Yeah,
you go.
probably. Growing up, I was always singing everywhere I could stick my nose into. So I was always finding other bands to play with and, whatever events I could find and just people to jam out with. Sometimes I would just show up at, people like musicians on the island would have jam sessions
Hmm.
and I was always this little kid trying to get in there. So,
Yeah,
so
that
yeah,
is cool.
probably at some point I've played with everybody.
Nice.
That's
Now you call
hilarious.
Nashville home now. Is that true? Are you in Nashville?
Yes, yes, I'm in Nashville. I'm actually just headed down the road to go do some songwriting. But yeah, I'm home in Nashville, Tennessee, and in a few days we'll be headed to Canada to do some shows. So yeah, back on the road.
Exciting, exciting. Are you looking
Yes.
forward to coming back?
I am. I'm always excited. I'm always excited to play music and excited to get back in the homelands and always hoping to squeeze in a visit with family somewhere.
Yeah, yeah. You've been in Nashville since, is it 2008? Well, I guess was your first contract. Did you move right down there and start making your
Yeah,
life?
I moved down to Nashville. I guess it was 2003 was the when I made the move permanent. And
Okay.
so, and right that year, I signed my first publishing deal with a publishing company as a songwriter. And then shortly after that, I signed a production deal with Scott Hendricks Productions. And then from there, we got the record deal with RCA Records. And so that was, so 2008 was when we put out the big album. And, but yeah, but the first time I moved to Nashville was in the 90s. I moved there for like a year and a half when I was 16 and didn't have the best experience. So I kind of gave up and went home. But then I came back for good.
Good for you. That's
Yeah.
tough to pick up everything you know and you have and you go somewhere that you don't know. And that seems to be the story of a lot of people. They get their butts kicked the first time they get to Nashville and then they lick some wounds and get back up again. So that's awesome.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's like the first time it was like, I was like this 16-year-old kid and I was too naive to be scared. I was just excited to do it, and I'd go up and down Music Row knocking on doors that I had no right to be knocking on. I'd be like, "Hey, I'm Crystal Shawanda. I'm from Canada and I'm a country music singer." And most of them would be like, "Yeah, yeah, run along," or you have to set an appointment with your manager. I'm like, "But I don't have a manager," and then they're like,
Luckily, she's
"Well,
right here.
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
right." I'm
That's right.
like, how do I get a manager? And then that was my first experience. But one of those chances, I ended up getting lucky. I was giving my whole song and dance to the receptionist, and there was this guy going through a back door that led to all the offices, and I could tell he was listening. He was taking too long to unlock the door with his keys. He was like jingling his keys around forever. So I laid on my speech extra thick, and then he was like, "Hey, I got a few minutes. Come on in here and play me a couple songs." And I was like, "Yes." And he brought me in, and he's like a really big producer and executive, actually produced some of my most favorite albums and was kind of like my dream producer who I wanted to work with. And then I sat down, played him a couple songs, and he's like, "Oh, you're amazing." He's like, "But I wouldn't know what to do with you. Native Americans and country music doesn't really make sense." He's like, "I wouldn't even know how to market you, and I don't think country music fans are ready for you." And I was like, "Okay." And I was like,
Interesting.
thanks for your time, sir." I was just trying not to cry. There's no crying in baseball.
Right.
And then I just went on my normal routine. But a month and a half later, I'm like, "Well, what am I doing here? I might as well just give up and go home." But that wasn't a good idea either, because then I went home and I was all depressed and went on a downward spiral and started partying a lot and making bad decisions. And I was
As
like,
any
I gotta,
16-year-old does.
yeah. And then I was like, you know what? I'm like, I gotta do something else. And I just, just came clear. I was born to sing. So I went back to Nashville, and this time it was for good.
Well,
There you
awesome.
go.
Well, I
I
guess
wait,
the
you got to appreciate the no crying in baseball reference. Let's give her some props for that.
Yes.
And, and if somebody said, "Look, I don't know what to do with you with country music," I think the proper response is, "Well, I went back, I drank a lot, made some bad decisions, and damn it, I was ready for country music."
Yeah, I'm ready for country music. I
so
did. I,
Yes,
I
it's
there
came
you
been
go.
back.
it's been a
Yeah,
few
people,
years. You got your a little rub on your head and say carry
exactly.
on, and now you have a Juno nomination.
Yes.
That is fantastic. So the nomination for Blues Album of the Year, Sing Pretty Blues. What? How did you feel when you first found out?
Oh, I was so excited. I couldn't believe it. I genuinely cried because I was so relieved, because it's
I
been
got
such a
shivers for
brutal
you.
it's been a brutal past few years, and how I found out was like I actually stayed up really late the night before because I wanted to sleep in. I didn't want to sit there stressing about, because I knew they were going to make the announcements, like, and there were so many amazing blues records this year. I was like, there's no way we're going to make it on this year. And so I slept in. So my husband actually came and woke me up. He's like, wake up. You just got nominated for a Juno Award for Blues Album of the Year." And I was like, "What?" And I just like sat there in shock, and I started crying. And because the past few years, we've been through a lot of changes and a lot of grief. My longtime manager, agent Rob Patty, passed away a couple years ago from cancer, and we were together with him for 14 years, which is like a lifetime in the
Wow.
music business.
Mm.
Like nobody stays together that long. And so that was really difficult, and we had to find our footing again. How do we do this without a Rob? And then we finished this album, Sing Pretty Blues, and we're handing it into the record label. And then True North Records, that's who I was recording the last three albums with. And so we were ready to hand it in, and the head of the label said, "I've decided to retire." And we're like, "No." Because they did such an amazing job. True North Records, they got me my first Juno Award for Blues Album of the Year in 2021, I think it was. And they did such great work on all my past albums. It was such a great experience, and I was really sad that he decided to retire. So it was like, what do we do? So we put it out back on my own record label, New Sun Music. And I was like, oh, I hope we don't screw this up. So to get nominations, it's like, okay, we didn't screw this up.
Yeah, I was,
That's
before we got to chatting, I was wondering, like, it's been 3 years since your last album came out, and I was wondering, what's changed in those 3 years that you've been able to kind of put all of this thought and energy into this record, and that's almost the answer right there. All,
Yeah, it's,
passing of your friend and colleague.
yeah,
Like
and then
that
and then I
itself is major.
it does. I think, grieving changes you, loss changes you, the past couple years, also a longtime fan friend who we knew since she was a little kid. She would come to our shows when we came out in 2008 with my first country hit single. She would come to our meet and greets and get us to sign a shirt, a hat, her hand, and she'd hug me and my husband Dwayne, and then she'd go to the back of the line so she could do it all over again, and she would do that like 5 times at every meet and greet. And we watched her grow up from being a fan to a friend to like a family member. And so she passed away a couple years ago, and struggled with addiction. And then my
Mm.
nephew also overdosed last year. So I went through like a lot of grieving, and then so my new album, it reflects that, but it also
Yeah,
reflects, my process of trying to get the courage to feel joy again. Like we're allowed to feel more than two things at a time. And so that was kind of the idea of the album, is like the commonality of strength and resilience.
really cathartic for you, right? To write that.
Absolutely.
That's a really good point. My wife talks about there's a I'm going to blow it here. I can't remember her name, but there's a on-air personality in on NBC that lost her husband, and she said one day when she came back to work, she said, "Don't confuse the fact if I'm smiling, but I'm trying really hard. Like you can be joyful and you can be grieving all at the same time. So,
Absolutely.
yeah,
And I think a
really,
lot of people struggle with that. People feel a sense of guilt, like they're not allowed to do that. So, I try to remind people, you can feel more than two things at a time. And, just like with everything going on in the world, as artists, we're like out there promoting ourselves, but meanwhile,
hmm
the world is like going up in flames behind us, and we're like, buy my album, buy a ticket to my show, and we're like feeling like the biggest jerks in the world. But we got to keep going, got to keep living, and we got to keep paying
yeah.
our bills.
So
Well,
is
songwriters used to be the reflection of, when you talk about like when people were going through wartime, the poets, the songwriters that echoed sort of how people were feeling. Immediately, Springsteen's latest release, Streets of Minneapolis, I think is called it. Anyway, yeah, so that's what people seek out, right? They're the reflectors of what's happening in society or their own lives. So yeah, I wouldn't feel badly about that. That's pretty cool.
yeah. I
Andrew,
take
Yeah.
it
sorry.
that's how changes made it onto the album.
Yeah, definitely. That song, I grew up with a brother who listened to a lot of Black Sabbath, and this song was always one of my favorites that I would sing along to. I always loved those sad songs, that Ozzy would do. And so I always loved it. And then after the passing of my friend, after she passed away, I started listening to the Charles Bradley version of Changes a lot. And I found it was interesting that the original song, when it was written, um, it was with the idea of going through a divorce.
Hmm
Ozzy's band member was going through a divorce. And then, but when Charles Bradley covered it, it was with the idea of his mom. He had a strained relationship with his mom and repaired the relationship. And then right when they were making their relationship good again, she passed away. And so, and then for me, I would listen to it, about my friend, so I thought it was interesting that we all took the music where we needed to take it, right? And that was why I wanted to record it, because it was one of those songs, people will use it where they need it.
Yeah.
It's definitely a song that has found a home on a blues album.
Yeah, and
That's for
that,
sure.
and that's another point I'm always trying to make when I do covers of, not traditional blues songs, is I'm trying to, reiterate the fact that blues is is the roots, and everything else is the fruits. All music has been, influenced and inspired by blues music, even if people don't realize it, that's the facts. So
Yeah.
I always try to point that out and remind people of that.
I agree. Blues and gospel sort of,
Yes.
that's the foundation, and then a lot of stuff came out of that. You mentioned earlier that initial conversation with the producer, that shaking his keys kind of stuff, and he just wasn't sure what to do with you. Um, I'm trying to think about how I can phrase this question, but I want to make sure. So, do you find that is it an important role for you to encourage, because you're such a role model, and it's really hard because I'm thinking to myself, okay, so it's important, for young females that want to become singers or songwriters. Then you have the indigenous, or he said Native American. Is all that like, does that weigh as an albatross, or is it something you think, nope, I can handle that. I want to be a good role model. Or do you sometimes just think, man, I just want to be an artist. I don't want to be a female artist. I don't want to be an indigenous artist. I just want to be a good artist. I just need people to see that. It's hard to sort of tease all that apart, right?
Yeah, definitely. For me, I've never really, it's just a part of who I am. I am a woman and I am indigenous,
Mhm.
and whether I want the responsibility of being a role model, it's there.
Right.
And my mom, always made me understand ever since I was a kid. She would tell me, you are going to be the first in a lot of spaces that you take up. So you need to appreciate that responsibility and respect it. Carry yourself in a good way that represents who you are as a person. And, you're representing your family and your community. And, sometimes I would tell people that in the business, and they'd be like, wow, that's a lot to put on a kid, but as an indigenous person, those are our teachings that we grow up with. We have the seven grandfather teachings, and just a few of them are honesty and truth, respect, humble, honor. These are important things that we try to be conscious of in every choice that we make. And so I've never thought of it as extra work. It's just a part of
Right.
who I am. And so I do try to be conscious of that, how I present myself, and I want to encourage other women, and I want to encourage other indigenous artists, and I try to pass on the knowledge I have. Like, I mentor a lot of other people. I also get hired to do consulting for other artists, and so, but the mentoring, I do that for free. And I always tell
Right.
people, if you ever need anything, message me. If you ever want to ask me about somebody in the business, message me, and I try to give people the heads up and give them the fair and honest answer that nobody ever gave me, because I didn't really have anybody telling me or giving me really good advice. It was all like, figure it out yourself. So, and I did, so if I can help somebody, not make as many screw ups as I did, then I would be happy to do that. I'm really, because I know how it is. I know how tough it is.
Hey, if you're enjoying this episode, hit like and subscribe. Why don't you share it with a friend? Now, back to our scheduled interview.
Yeah. That's great. I like to operate in that space too. It's so much easier to be cooperative than competitive, right? So,
Yes.
yeah, so
Yes,
much
I
nicer.
want I want to see other people win. I a lot of mentoring I do is female artists, blues artists, country music artists, indigenous artists, folk artists, and sometimes it's just encouragement. Sometimes they just need a cheerleader for somebody to say, on the bad days or when things don't work out, for someone to just say, hey, it's okay, these things happen, it's up and down. That's the music business. Sometimes you're on top winning, and sometimes you're just barely getting by, but hey, you were hanging in there. And when they win, to celebrate them, or when they get nominated, congratulating people, making a big deal out of them, because it's hard work to get there, and it should be recognized.
Sure, sure. Are you you're combining your latest tour for the new album? You're combining with the Junos, sort of putting the whole tour schedule. You slide through the hammer, and then are you going to be there on time, kind of thing? Is that how that works?
Yeah, yeah, we're kind of in and out. I took a little time off the road this winter. My daughter attends a arts academy. She takes dance and
Mhm.
several different courses, and so we've tried to make that our priority this year. So like, if it interferes with that, then we can't take the show. And so we're just coming out of it. Pretty soon she'll be done her year. She'll be doing her end of the year recital. So we're just starting to get our feet back in there, and we're playing some shows this month up in Canada. And then we got shows in America. We have shows in Alabama and Georgia and Florida throughout the spring. And then we'll hit it full speed in the summer up in Canada. So we're excited. It's going to be a very busy year. We've got some huge show announcements coming up, but I have to wait because, a lot of these places like to do their announcements first.
Right. And you
You heard it
mentioned
here first.
yeah, that's right. Backstage Lowdown. We're breaking it down. Crystal, you mentioned that you've got your own record label, so you're running in between being a mom and doing all the touring and stuff. You're running your own record label as well and signing artists and that whole thing.
I know, I'm crazy.
No, that's
Yeah, no.
fantastic.
Yeah, yeah. So when I parted ways with RCA Records in 2010, I had the choice of, I had offers from other labels in America and Canada, but, I felt like through my experience at RCA, it was amazing. And I learned so much. I worked with really incredible, intelligent, talented people who taught me so much, with not all the knowledge I still use today. But I also kind of lost myself through the process because I was so grateful. I became a bit of a yes person, and I kind of lost my voice along the way. So I decided to start my own label so I could explore and experiment and remember who I am as a musician, as a singer, as a songwriter, as an artist, and what I want out of my life. What's really going to make me happy. So that's how it started, and then we started getting approached by other artists, and we're learning as we go. We're not some great big corporation. We're a group of musicians and producers and artists and creatives who have forced together to create this record label. And we try to do what's best for the artists. And we try to teach them what we can, the knowledge that we have. And sometimes it goes good and sometimes it goes bad, because
That's
that's
still really
business.
cool.
not
Okay,
not
it,
Wow.
everybody's always happy that, and the thing is, we're always learning, and the music business model is always changing. So, sometimes we have to catch up, and we're not as fast as big corporations, but we're working with some great artists. We're working with a indigenous artist from Ottawa named Alicia Cayley.
mhm.
She actually, CBC just recently dubbed her like the Indigenous Adele. She's got this incredible voice, and her video just went viral on TikTok because she did like a twist of a Hozier song. You know that Too Sweet song?
Mhm.
And Whiskey Sweet, I think, is like, I like my whiskey sweet.
Yeah,
She changed it to I like my Pepsi sweet. And she talks about moose meat, and it went viral on the internet. Some indigenous people loved it, some of them hated it, and some people thought it was dumb. But either way, she's getting the views, and we're so proud to be
Right.
working with her because she's so talented. And then we're working with a Cree rock band from Manitoba called Low Budget Rockstar. They're kind of like an indigenous Green Day. I hate to do comparisons, but that's the only way I can give you an idea
Right.
of their
yeah.
sound. Yeah, and so they're doing a song this spring called Cotton Candy. It's really fun. And then we're working with Ping Rose, who's a blues artist from Memphis who lives in Nashville and who made a lot of noise on blues radio this year. So we got some great talent, and we're very grateful.
So
Very
for
cool.
a new up and coming artist, or even those that have been around for decades trying to make it in the business, the music industry, it's constantly changing and it seems to be changing even quicker now. from somebody that runs a label, what do you recommend to for that person to be doing? Whether it's to get their music noticed, to get a manager, get signed with a label, where do they start?
You just start building. That's the most important thing, is building your own thing that you own, that you created. Decide who you are as an artist and be yourself. Sometimes so many artists can get lost in this idea of like they see a successful artist, so they try to mimic them and model themselves after them. But there's already that artist, and you
Somebody's
can't
filled
be
that
better.
space.
Yeah, yeah. So create
Mm.
your own space, create your own sound, your own identity, something unique and something that's true to you. Don't cosplay something.
Right.
Because if you're authentic, people will really connect with you in a genuine way and a lasting way where they'll be your fan for life, and not just for that one song or that one album. And I think the most important thing is to be teachable. Let people teach you. You don't know everything.
That makes
Nobody knows
sense.
everything, and let people teach you, and build bridges, don't burn them, because the music business is a small world. So,
Yeah. Well, as
oh,
you and
thanks.
Lance were saying earlier on, like it's much better to help somebody along than, burn that bridge and compete against that individual. And down the road, maybe you need that person.
Well,
Absolutely. You never know
yeah.
where people will end up. I remember a guy who used to work in the tape room at a publishing company. And the tape room is the guy who just stands there and records tapes that they're going to pitch to big artists, right? So he's like the bottom of the pole at a
All right.
publishing company. And, now he runs the biggest publishing company in Nashville. So, always
Wow.
play nice.
Yeah. It's a good life lesson if it's not even the music industry. Just play
So,
nice.
Absolutely, just in life in general.
Yeah.
And it's
speaking
just
of
like,
playing nice, I'm curious about this. You and your husband, you're together, you also work together. I would think that that might be very difficult. Um,
Are you saying that
are
you don't want to work with Allison? Is that just say it
that
right
might
now
that
on air? You don't want to work with
no, I
Allison?
wouldn't work with Allison. That's
Wow.
that's it.
Okay.
So do you guys play nice in the sandbox together?
my husband's over here just laughing.
You you don't. Way to go, Andrew, you
Oh,
knucklehead.
thanks.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Hey, Dwayne.
That's right.
There's D-Wayne.
Yeah, there you go. I
That's
like D
hilarious.
Wayne. That's a good handle. That's awesome.
You know,
So,
you know, the thing is, we're best friends. First of all, our favorite people to hang out with is each other, our little family. Like we're always laughing. We had the best time.
That's awesome.
Do we butt heads? Absolutely. We're together
Hmm.
all the time. Of course, we're gonna disagree, and then also, we both have very strong personalities and strong minds, and we both have a backbone. And so, so
Nobody's
when we
backing down.
nobody's backing down, nobody.
no,
And
no, wait a second. Wait a second. Put D Wayne back on there for me for just a second.
you
So, D Wayne, I've been married for a while too. I think sometimes, don't you just kind of figure out, and I'm sure the women do it too, is this a hill I want to die on? Like, that's a question, right? That,
It's a no-brainer, man. She's right.
yeah.
Doesn't matter.
Good call.
It's
Good call.
okay. Just
If you
be
want to live
chill.
another
I
day.
can't, I
I'm
can't say she's
blessed,
right. Oh, now we got to edit that out. Oh my gosh, that's not going to help any of us.
But you know
That's
what
all.
though? It's all in good fun, and we do
Oh
it with
yeah.
each other. I think the most important thing, what makes us successful as a team, is that we don't take it too seriously. We're always laughing at each other, even when we argue. We always remember what's most important, and that's us. Being together. It's like sometimes we can be bickering, and then we'll be like stressed out because we've been traveling, flying, and we just barely got to the show in time for sound check, and now we got to play the show, and
Yeah.
then we get on that stage and we get lost in the music, and then we remember it's like, oh yeah, here we are. This is who we are, And
Right.
we look at each other on that stage, and we are so grateful for the life that we're building together. We get to write music together, make music together in the studio, play it on stage. We get to travel and see all these cool places and meet a bunch of cool people. And we do it with our little girl right between us singing backgrounds. It's like we have built the life that we want. So that's the most important thing. And when it comes to the music, we made an agreement many years ago when we first started working together that when it comes to music, the song is the most important thing. So it's not our egos, it's what's best for the music.
Yeah. No, that's a good call. That's a really good call. Um, Let me ask you this quick question, and we'll let you go. Who has like been the biggest or most amazing person or fun person for you to meet since you've been to Nashville? Was there somebody that you met that oh, I always wanted to meet this person, but now I'm an artist in Nashville. I have access. Who's been the person?
You know, I've met so many. Like when You Can Let Go came out, it was such a surreal time. I always call that part of my life a beautiful blur because it went by so
Mhm.
fast. And
Right.
looking back, I wish I would have enjoyed it a little bit more, but it went so fast. And it was so surreal. I was this kid fresh off the reservation, and I was so introverted as I was. I was so shy. And then I had a couple bad experiences with meeting people who I was excited to meet, and they were kind of rude. And I was like, oh, I guess if I want my heroes to stay on a pedestal, maybe I shouldn't talk with them too much.
That's what they say.
And so I've met after that. I met so many people, and I meet them, and I'm polite, but I try not to take up too much of their time and space, and I admire them a lot from afar. Um, but it's surreal. Like I said, I was fresh off the res. This one experience, it was CRS week, which is like radio seminar week in Nashville, and we were on the General Jackson showboat, and that's where they wine and dine all the radio people,
Right.
and they took me around the room to meet everybody. And after that, they were like, okay, you're free, you got about 30 minutes. And so I snuck upstairs to the bar upstairs that was just for all the artists. And I'm sitting there and I'm looking over there, and there's, Montgomery Gentry, and there's Kenny Chesney, and there's Brad Paisley, and they're all just sitting at the bar, and nobody was talking. They were all just sitting there quietly drinking their drinks. And I'm like,
Silence.
and I'm like, hey, sup, sup, sup. And, and I'm like, and then I'm like, okay, cool, this is quiet time. So we all just stood there
Yeah.
quietly, you know, um, but there's a lot of really cool people out there too, though. Dirk Bentley was probably one of the nicest people to me ever. He was so complimentary and was so nice. Um, but yeah, I always just let people have their space, to be honest.
Sure.
Yeah. How Canadian of you. That's just so polite.
Because I'm always I get nervous, right? Especially
Right.
if it's somebody who I actually grew up listening to on the radio, then it's a big deal. Then I get all tongue tied. Like I've met Jim Cuddy from Blue Rodeo so many
Mhm.
times, and every time I still make such a jerk of myself. Like it's just so dumb. Like every time, like the last time that I saw him, my manager was still alive, and he was like, it was like a circle of people, and everybody's just talking back and forth, and then my manager's like, oh, Jim, Crystal covered one of your songs on her YouTube channel, and Jim looks at me and he goes, oh, really, which one was it? And I just stared at him. I'm like, i I gotta go to the bar, and I just walked away.
That's
That was
awesome,
it.
though. You don't think
that
that
was that was
that
it.
moment happens, but it does, and it happens all the time. You
Yeah,
just
yeah.
get a
And
little bit starstruck,
oh yeah,
and the tongue
this
gets
one was even
twisted.
this one was even better. Was backstage at a televised thing in Canada, and I had like 50 seconds to run to the restroom, use the restroom, and come back for my performance. And they were like, I don't think you have time. I'm like, you don't understand. I have to go. I have given birth. I have to go.
We're
And
making
I gotta
time.
go. And I start running down the hallway. And as I'm rounding a corner, there's the guys from Tragically Hip. And they were like, oh my God, we heard you at Soundtrack. You were amazing. I'm like, oh my God, you guys are amazing. But I have to go and take a piss really bad. I ran to the bathroom, and that's my tragically hip story.
I am so happy that you shared those two stories
So,
with us.
so that's
Those
my
are
history with
fantastic.
meeting people.
I think you're handling this pretty well, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Crystal, I don't know if you've had the opportunity to listen to one of our incredible episodes. However, when we usually wrap them up by doing something entirely unscientific, and it's a lightning round. So we're going to ask you questions
Oh no,
like, I don't know, like hats or jackets, and you
that's so
pick one.
funny because I'm
Then
so
you pick
slow.
one.
Oh, no, no. Yeah, there you go. Well, I mean, you don't. Yeah, just you can answer the
Okay,
question,
I got it.
whatever. We're
Yeah.
not timing you. Andrew comes out. This is Andrew's gig, and it's great, and I love it. And there's no wrong answer though. So
All right.
we just get to know you a little bit better.
Okay.
All
Honestly,
right.
there's always one question that people say both, or there's a story that comes along. I don't know
Yeah.
that we've
Right.
ever gotten through it clean once in 6 years.
But there's no
That's
call a
just,
friend. Like you can't ask D Wayne, hey, what do I in my shoes
what
or
do I
boots? What do I
say?
think about me? Yeah, okay, all right.
Okay, so
Okay.
let's get started. Club or country honky tonk?
Blues Club.
Writing a heartbreak song or a revenge song?
Heartbreak. I love those sad songs.
Singing a slow blues ballad or a gritty blues rocker?
Gritty blues rocker. I want to have some fun.
Nice. Recording in Nashville or recording back in Toronto?
I got to do Nashville because all my homie G's are here that help me sound so fantastic.
Awesome. Hound Dog or Misty Blue?
Mm, that one's hard because they're so good. Hound Dog because that's my daughter's favorite song.
Oh, beautiful. Acoustic guitar vibe or full electric band?
Full electric band. I always love to just rock out.
Manitoulin Island Peace and Quiet or Big City Energy?
Mm, Manitou and peace and quiet. Even though I live in Nashville, I love Nashville, but my heart lives on the island.
Nice. Tour bus karaoke, Elvis Presley or Dolly Parton?
Mm, Elvis. Elvis, baby.
Nice. Road trip music, classic soul or 90s country throwbacks?
Oh, both.
See,
I
I
gotta
told
say,
you there's
That was
I
a
always
one
gotta choose.
question.
I
one.
gotta say both.
That's the one. And our last question, recording style, one take with raw emotion or perfecting it layer by layer.
One take raw emotion.
And that has been another episode of Backstage Lowdown. Thanks so much, Crystal. That was a lot of fun. I had a
Yeah, that
great
was.
time.
That was fun.